Okay, so today we're going to talk about the area of composite shapes. But before we get started, let's talk about the area and perimeter of just our normal shapes that we've talked about so far, our simple shapes. So we've got squares, rectangles, parallelograms, triangles, and trapezoids. So take a minute to pause the video first and try to fill out this sheet where we would have the area and the perimeter of each of those shapes. And after you've written that down on a separate sheet of paper, start the video up again and see how you did. So I'm going to just give you a second to do that as I fill these in. So hopefully you got this, and I'm just going to start adding these in here as we go back into it. So here we see the square is s squared for the area and 4 times the side length since they're all the same. Rectangles and parallelograms, both for area is base times height, where rectangles have a formula for perimeter, 2b plus 2h. Okay. For perimeter of both parallelograms, triangles, and trapezoids, all we're going to do is add up all sides, right? And so that's kind of our foolproof method that will always work for a perimeter. No matter, even for rectangles and squares, we can always add up all the sides. But for these two, this is our way that we have learned how to do it in this class. Okay. Now for triangles, the area will be 1/2 base times height, and for trapezoids, 1/2 b1 plus b2 times the height. Now, one thing we just want to remind you of is that, remember, base and height will always meet at a right angle. They are always perpendicular. So one suggestion I always have is that you highlight the bases and the height to make sure you are using the right one. So hopefully that's a quick review on the basic shapes here before we go into composite shapes. And what a composite shape is just a combination of one or more of these simple shapes that we have. So if you have your note packet out in front of you, we are going to use page 194. And let's just look at the first one here on the top left. Okay? And so here we see we have a shape. It looks like it's going to be a combination of a bunch of rectangles. Okay? So the one thing I would do is I suggest that you have a lot of colors in front of you, colored pencils, highlighters, something like that. And the thing that I would start doing is let's just start dividing up this shape into shapes that we see. So for me, right, I might see this as the first rectangle. Okay? And so we get the first rectangle here. Let's see, I see another rectangle here. And so the beautiful part about this is if we all don't see it the same way, that's okay, because if you do it in the correct way, you will still get the same answer. So to me here, I see 4 different rectangles or squares that I'm dividing this shape up into. Okay? So now all we are really worried about doing is let's create the area for each of these. So I'm going to start here with this one that's in the maroon, the purpley color. Okay? And all we're doing, this is a rectangle, right? So area equals base times height. So if we look at that, I have a base of 3 and a height of 3. So 3 times 3, which is area of 9. 9 units squared, whatever our unit would be here. So now I know this whole version here, the purple version, the purple rectangle, has an area of 9. Okay? So I'm done with that little group. So what if I move on to the next one? Let's do the one in light blue. So here, hopefully again, base times height. This one looks to be 3 times 2, which is an area of 6. So now I know this blue rectangle has an area of 6. So I've done 2 out of the 4 things. Well, if we move down, I'm going to do this last rectangle here in the bottom, the square. The area is equal to base times height again. So 2 times 2, which is 4. So the area of this square, the orange square, is 4. And so there, all I'm left with is now the green. And the green starts to get a little bit more challenging because all of those you saw, it pretty much gave me the base and the height. I didn't have to do anything. But here on the green, you see that we've started to take away some of its height. So right here, this is the height of the green one. Well, the only thing we have is we have 7, which was the height of this whole thing, right? So 7 was the height from there to there. Well, we need to look at, okay, well, what started to get taken away from 7? And if you look on the opposite side of this rectangle, we have right here, part of this purple one got taken away, and that was 3 units from there to there. So from here to here was 3 units. Well, if we look at the other side here, the orange also had this. From there to there was 2 units. So if we kind of look at this, that tells me, oh, this green one then has 7 minus 3 minus 2. We take away both of those. So what would be left here as the height, is not 5, because 7 minus 5 is 2. So I know I have a height of 2. Well, what I also need to look at is, okay, well, we got the height of 2, but now what about the base? How long is this base? Well, it just tells me 6. Well, 6 is only the base from here to here. So what are we missing? Well, we're missing this little part, this 2, right? We're missing that part, which is covered in the orange one. So my height here would be the 6 plus the 2 I was missing, so the 8 for the base. So now that I have the height and the base, area equals 8 times 2, which would be 16. So now, once I have those all together, so now I have the area of all of these shapes so far. And so what we can then do is to find the area of the whole shape, we just add up all the areas I already have. So the area total would be equal to 9 plus 6 plus 16 plus 2. Okay, 9 plus 6 plus 16 plus 4. Excuse me, this was a 4 here on the bottom from the orange one. And so using those, we end up with a total of 35. The area total is 35 units squared. And if we just want to kind of recap where this came, the 4 came from my orange, the 16 from the green, the 6 was from the blue, and the 9 was from the purple. So what I would ask you now is, why don't you pause the video and try the next couple here on page 94. The answers have been posted to the classroom website. They're also at the classroom. So hopefully you paused the video, you tried those, and you were doing okay. So now I'm going to move on to page 195. And in 195, all of a sudden, we looked like we added a new shape here. We're going to try number 1. Hopefully on first look, you see, oh, well, this is a rectangle and a triangle, right? So all of a sudden, we have a fewer shapes, but I got my rectangle and my triangle. So we just need to think about, okay, well, what's the area of the orange one? The area of the orange one is base times height, 6 times 4. So that's 24. And we need to think about, okay, well, what about the area of the green one? Well, area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. So the area would be 1/2 of the base. Well, we don't know what this base is, but we know in a rectangle, opposites are congruent. So 6 is on the base there. So 6, the height is 3. Remember, I like to highlight the base and the height so I know which two are talking about. And 6 times 3 here is 9. So now my area of the total would be equal to the 24 from the orange plus the 9 from the green, which is 33. Okay. So there, my area is 33 units squared. So hopefully you are realizing that composite shapes, while they may look intimidating, you really are just doing the simple shapes and adding together the area.